Okay, so I am going to go from almost start to finish on how to stitch out these nested blocks. So the difference between a nested block and then a end-to-end quilting design is that with a nested block, you don't have beginning and ending points that you have to match up. The block itself is just one design, but it nests into the other designs. So here you can see there's 4 designs here, and you can kind of see that the first one is here, or one of them, and then the other one just nests in. So from a distance, because they nest, they're not perfect squares or rectangles. Because they nest, it just looks like an all over. Now I have 2 different versions of this particular one, and I'll be working on the other ones on the site as well. And the 2 versions are, one of them will come with a tie on and a tie off, just in case you don't feel like burying your threads. A lot of people, a lot of quilters, they'll make a like a overhand knot, I think you call it. It's like 1/4 of an inch away from where the thread comes out of. You make a little knot, and then you feed that whole long thread, yank it, and the knot snaps in. A lot of people like to just bury their beginning and endings that way. That's the traditional quilt way, and if you go to a quilt show, they judge you on that. So one of the versions has tie-ons and tie-offs, and one of the versions does not, so you will have to bury them. So, but what I found, now I have a multi-needle Janome MB4, and I also have a Brother 600. And obviously the Brother 600 is newer. However, even when I uploaded the version with no tie-ons or tie-offs on my Brother, it still added a tie-on and a tie-off. They were really nice. I'll show you on this one that I just did. They're very nice. They're very tiny, but I'm not sure if there's a setting to turn them off. I couldn't find one, so I'll have to look into that. I did read for the PR 600s and so on that if the distance between 2 stitch points, between the first stitch point and the second, if that distance is 0.8 millimeters or less, then it won't make a tie-on or a tie-off. That's for the 600. I did try it for this. That's for the PR 600. I did try it for this SE600, and it still made a tie-on. And my distance was 0.7 mils. So maybe it has to be smaller. I don't know. But maybe since this SE600 is an entry-level machine, maybe it's just defaulted to always make a tie-on and a tie-off. I don't know. But even though it did, I'll show it to you here. I'll see if I can. You can see it right there. That's the tie-on. Let me try to get so it's more in the light. I mean, it's very, very tiny. And I still made a knot 1/4 of an inch away, and I buried it. And this is the back. So that's the beginning. Was that the beginning? Yeah, that's the beginning stitch. And then this is the ending stitch here. So, I still buried them. I still made the knot 1/4 of an inch away. And buried them. So, until I can figure that out, or maybe if somebody knows that I'm missing something, you know, I guess it'll have to be like that. Now, these other ones that I made, I don't know if you're going to be able to see. Not on that one. Well, this one you can't see either. This was with the tie-ons. You can see there's a tie-on there. This was the other version. So in addition to the tie-ons that I made, I believe my machine made its own, 3 or 4 stitches for their tie-on. And here's their tie-off in addition to mine right there. So they still look great, and the stitches are gorgeous. My tension is at 4.5 on this SE600. I didn't, I don't want to say that I didn't touch the bobbin, because when I first got the machine, I changed the bobbin tension. I made it tighter. It was just too loose. So I always mess with bobbin tension. So at any rate, so my stitches are balanced now on this one. At 4.0, they were not balanced. So if we look at, say, this one where it was at 4.0 on the top, you can see it just, some areas it looked a little more like just a straight line. And that just means that my bobbin was tight, but my top wasn't tight enough. And I looked at my top and I was like, my top does seem like I could tighten it a little. And so sure enough, when I went to 4.5, it's perfect. Because for me too, and even quilters and quilts, quilts are going to get a lot of wear and tear. So you want to make sure your top is not flimsy when you go and drag your fingernail across it perpendicular. And that's how these are now. They're very nice. So anyways, the first one that I did, because this is just going to be a bag, because with a 4x4 hoop, obviously you're not going to do a quilt, but you could do a table runner or a placemat and just keep rehooping. I also have a version with the overlap hoop, and I have shelf liner stuck on this one. But so this version has 2 designs. They're slightly smaller than this one, just so that they would fit into the overlap. So then you could do, 2 at a time if you have the overlap. But at any rate, I'm just doing bags for my SE600. But I am looking at some bigger machines with bigger hoops to actually do a quilt, even though I have a long arm. My long arm's not computerized, and I'm getting old, so I don't know. I'm still deciding. And for the Janome MB4, for the multi-needles, yes, you can do a quilt in the hoop on those, but I've noticed that there isn't a lot of throat space. However, my machine is a little jammed up in a place that's not convenient to mess with, the back part of the quilt and keep it up and away. So I would have to move my machine to do more experimenting on it. It does seem like the really long, regular type sewing / embroidery or embroidery only flatbed machines, they are easier to do a quilt on, it does seem, because you have all that free space, in front and behind. So we'll see. But at any rate, I just started because it's a purse, I just put my first design in the top left, and then I made 2 more going down. But with a quilt, obviously they say you're supposed to start in the center. And so a lot of people just wing it and just plop it in the center. They measure their quilt and they find the center and they go by their quilt marks. Other people say, no, you should make a vertical line all the way down your quilt and follow that quilt for that very first vertical column that you do, one after the other. For your template, stitch your design on some clear vinyl or clear plastic. This was just from a baggie, and I just hooped the plastic and stitched it just like this, no stabilizer or anything. And I also stitched a crosshair on it. The crosshair is good because that's how we can check for rotation. So I'm going to try to line this up. So I'll try and be like a 1/4 inch away from the top design and a 1/4 inch on the side. And then I'll try to get this line parallel with the vertical seam. And okay, so those 2 look good. Here it's a little bit bigger than a 1/4. So it looks pretty good to me. I think I'm going to go with that. I'm just going to put this tape like this. It's going to go under my hoop, so I'm going to have to use the double-sided tape for this. I just stitched it so I don't have anything under it. So that's better. Because we want to leave this on until we've, checked everything for center and rotation. So now I'll go ahead and take this template that I created, the crosshair, because it goes flat, and I'll line up this crosshair with this one, if I can see. Okay, so I'll hold that and I'll put my tape in. And again, if you don't have this, you can use your regular template and try to get it as close as you can. And then this one has double-sided tape on the bottom. It's not as sticky as it was, and it just kind of lays in there because this is so tightly fitting against it. And I'll press down. Then I'll take the back ring, slide it under. Grab both sides. Okay, I'm going to push down with my left thumb. I might have to loosen it. Okay, there we go. I'm going to push down here. Hold that down and then walk myself around. Try to use the palm, but I don't want to get in the way. There we go. A lot of times it's easier to push down here first. So you kind of push here and then kind of push here. I don't know. It's, I think I do it different every time. We all hate hooping. Thought about getting the magnetic 4x4 for this, but I kind of want a bigger machine. I have a Janome MB4 multi-needle, but for quilting in the hoop, the regular machines are easier. So now that I have my hoop in, I'm taking this tape back, and then I can just remove this, and then this stencil will stay so we could check for rotation. And it still looks good. It's not hitting anything. So that's really all you need to do. And so we'll go to the machine. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and just bring up the design again. And I was able to hoop it a little bit crookedly this time. And just so I could show you how to rotate it. And normally it would already be on the screen from the last one that I did, but you still have to check for center and rotation because of course we rehooped it. So I'll go right here into my USB. And this is my folder I have it in. I have to scroll down, so I have to hit the arrow. Quilt in the hoop. Now this is the design that I'm going to bring up. I like having the crosshair in all my designs because that's how I could check for rotation to see if I need to rotate the design. You always have to kind of trace a crosshair that's in the design. So I'm going to go ahead and select this one. And there's other ways you can do it, especially with a machine like this that doesn't have a crosshair in the machine. You can actually bring in a diamond or a rectangle, and you can rotate it 45 degrees and then follow the points of that diamond. It's kind of hard to follow those points, but not really. But then you have to write down how much movement you made, because then you have to X out of that design and then bring in your design and then find the center of your design and then rotate it according to how you rotated it for the diamond. So it's kind of a pain. That's why it's better to have the crosshair in there, already in there. And then you just don't stitch it out. You skip over to the next color once you're done, you know, tracing it and so on. So anyways, so that's why I like to have it in there. So here's my design. And the first screen, you really don't want to move or rotate on this first screen, the screen that says Edit End in the corner, because the move on this screen just moves the design on the screen, and we want to hear the carriage move when we do move it. Granted, it's a little more complicated once we get to rotating, but as far as moving, we want the second screen so that we could hear the carriage. So we hit Edit End, and on this screen now, we can check for center. So this second screen, the one that says Embroidery in the corner, will allow us to check for center. So we'll go over here, and I'll try to get this in view. And remember, your embroidery machine, most of them, they all default to the center of the hoop, and that's at the beginning of a design and then also at the end of a design. They just go right back to the center of the hoop. Well, if you didn't hoop straight, the center of the hoop may not be the center of your crosshair on your design or your template or whatever is on the fabric. And this crosshair on your fabric is the one we want to stitch out in this location that's on the fabric. So here I am. I'm beginning of my design. My needle defaulted to the center of the hoop. Let's dial down and see if our needle is in the center of our crosshair. And I don't know if you can see that, but my needle is slightly to the left of my crosshair center. It doesn't look like it needs to be moved up or down. It just looks like it's slightly to the left. So we want to move the needle to the right. So to move the needle to the right, and everything we're going to do as far as moving is going to be in regards to the needle, what the needle is doing. So we want to move the needle to the right. So we go over to our screen, and it looks like it's going to be about maybe 1 or 2 millimeters. So we'll go back to our screen, and we're on the screen that says Embroidery in the corner. That's the one we want. And these buttons will move it left or right, up or down, and so on. And so up here shows our position. Right now, our needle is at 0, 0. So when I move the needle to the right, this line here is going to change. This is our horizontal, moving it left or right. This is an X direction. This up here is vertical, up or down. It's a Y direction. But we're going to move it just in this horizontal direction. So we'll hit it once. Up, the needle is down. So I have to, oh, darn it, I went in my fabric. I have to move my hand wheel back. And you can move your hand wheel backward as long as you didn't go all the way in the fabric and get the hook involved. So I moved it back. So now I'm going to hit, when I hit this button, you'll see the movement. I'll come over here so you could see the movement. So I'm going to hit that button, and you'll see the needle will move to the right. And the reason the needle seems like it's moving to the right is because the carriage is actually moving to the left. And remember, the carriage is attached to the hoop, or the hoop is attached to the carriage. So that moves to the left, which makes it look like the needle is moving to the right. And we're hitting the right arrow button because everything is in relation to the needle. So I'll hit it once. You could see the needle looked like it moved to the right. I'm going to hit it again. It goes only by 0.5 millimeters every time. 0.5 millimeter every time. Let me dial down. So it looks like I'm right in the center now. So I went 2 clicks, which is 1/2 and 1/2, which is 1 mil. So I'm centered. I don't have to move up or down. Everything looked good in that direction. But now I have to check to see if I need to rotate the needle. And this is going to be confusing because we're still talking in relation to the needle. So to check for rotation, we have to actually follow or trace a crosshair that's in the design. So this crosshair is in the design as well because I have it digitized in there. So let's go back to the screen. And to follow an object that's in the design, we have to go into embroidery. So we're done with this screen for right now. And we'll hit embroidery. And this is showing our 2 colors. The first one is our crosshair. And notice I have this unchecked because I don't want it to cut, because I want to bury my long tails beginning at the end. But at any rate, our crosshair stitches first, and we want to follow that crosshair. So we go down here to our plus and minus, or minus and plus of the needle. And we can also do thread colors, plus or minus, but we're just going to concentrate on the needle. And here's my needle right here in green. And I'm going to go like plus 10. And I know my crosshair, it's going to come up here. So when I hit plus 10, my needle's going to go 10 stitches. The first 10 stitches. So I'm hitting plus 10, and it came way up here to the top of the crosshair almost. I don't have to go all the way up. That's good enough. So I'm going to dial my needle down, and it looks like my needle is slightly to the right of this crosshair. So that would tell me that my needle needs to be, if it's too much to the right, my needle needs to be rotated counterclockwise. Not by much, maybe 1 degree even. But I'm going to dial back up, and I'm just going to go 10 more on the screen, plus 10. I'll go plus 10 again to get closer to the bottom. And then down here, you see my needle. I actually accidentally punctured that. Let me go plus 1. Okay. That's the bottom of my design, and my needle is slightly to the left. So it's kind of, like that, exaggerated. So again, that needle, the needle now, not the design, but the needle has to be rotated counterclockwise to get it on this crosshair. So that pretty much confirms it. I did two spots, And I can go and look at the horizontal line as well. So I'll dial back up and go +10. And that one's kind of on the knot. So let me go minus, oops, +10, +1. Okay, that was the beginning knot. So, so you could see I'm above, the needle is above the crosshair. So since it's above the crosshair, again, it's kind of like this. So to get it, on the crosshair, it has to be rotated counterclockwise. So we've confirmed it now in 3 spots. I don't even have to confirm it here. I know my needle needs to be rotated counterclockwise. So I come over here, and since this design is so large, I'm not going to have a whole lot of room to rotate. So I'm hoping 1 degree is going to do it. I made the subsequent designs a little bit smaller so that we could have more room for rotation. This design is 3.75 inches tall, and it's just not enough for human error if you do need to rotate, because this hoop is 4 inches. So that only gives you a 1/4 inch divided by 2 sides. That gives you 1/8 of an inch leeway. It's not enough. So the designs that are in the file are 3.5 inches tall. That gives you a 1/4 inch on each end for rotation. So, and if anybody needs it any smaller, there's also a, oh, no, that's because that's doubled. You wouldn't be able to split it if you didn't have software. But if anybody needs it any smaller, you could just ask me. And you could make the stitch file smaller on your machine, but I don't like doing that, even just a little bit. So at any rate, we need to rotate. We know we need to rotate at least 1 degree counterclockwise. So we have to get out of this screen to rotate. So I'll hit OK. And we have to get out of this screen. Well, so I'll hit my back button. And we get to this embroidery screen. And that's where we hit rotate. We're going counterclockwise. I'm going to go 1 degree, and you'll see it change up here. So it went from, now 0 degrees and 360 degrees were the same position. So it went from 360 down to 359. So basically it was like this, and it rotated 1 degree. And you could see that it rotated because this red boundary line is jagged now. Now, is that 1 degree going to be enough? I hope so, because I've noticed that if I try to go 1 more degree, because my design is so big, if I try to go 1 more degree, it completely rotates it 90 degrees, and you'll see. It went to 271. It completely rotated it. It's basically telling me we can't go 1 more degree. We can go completely 90 and still stay within the hoop, but we can't go 1 more degree. So I'm going to go back. So that's why I've changed the size of this design to be 3.5 inches in the file. But I have to just kind of go with this. And I generally hoop so perfectly every time because of my system. I don't ever have a problem. I purposely tried to hoop crookedly just so that I could show you how to rotate. So at any rate, we're going to see if that 1 degree is going to be good enough. So I'll hit OK. And go into an embroidery here, go into my stitch tracing, and I'll go my 10 degrees again. So I'll hit this, and you'll see the needle is up here. So let's go and see what that did. So I'm going to dial down, and I'm actually right on. I don't know if you could see that, but I'm right on. There's my needle, and it's right on the line. So that's good for me. I'm going to go 10 more just to confirm. And I'm right on there. Dial back up. I'll go 10 more up here. And plus 1. I'm pretty much right on there. You don't have to confirm this other line if your vertical was straight. This is just an extra way to see. So now I'm not going to stitch the cross here. So I have to come back over here to the screen. I'll just go here and go forward to the next thread color. I'll hit this plus. So that takes me to color 2 of 2. Here's the thread. I'll hit OK. And now I'll come back over here. And I can take off my template. And then I'm actually going to go to my very first stitch so I could pull up my thread. So I am going to come over here and go to plus 1, my very first stitch of this second color. So it moved over to my first stitch. And now I'm going to do a needle up, needle down to grab my bobbin thread. But I'm going to, you see the red, this is red. I'm going to put my lever down just so that my tension discs are engaged when I do needle down, needle up. Okay, I'll lift it up just to grab that bobbin thread. If I just pulled up on this and it brought the bobbin thread up, put my presser foot down. And I usually like to just hold my finger on the hoop. Now I know how this design stitches out. It stitches out here and goes around. I can stop it, but what's the sense? I kind of want to, because the last time I stitched it, I split one of the threads when I went over it. So, and then it was hard to pull it out. So I'll just go ahead and press start. And because what it's going to do is it's going to start here and then stitch around and then come over these threads. And so I thought what I would do is let it come around and then stop it here and then move this. I don't know, just so I don't have to deal with, a lot of times I'm so used to on my other machine, on my Janome MB4, a lot of times when I stop the machine, I get a loop when I start back up again. But this machine, I don't think it will do that. So we'll see. So I'll go ahead and I'll start it. And see, I could move it now over here. see there's no loops with this machine. And I have my tension a half a unit higher. I have it at 4.5 as opposed to 4. And I must say that I did, so I just moved the thread back over here because nothing else is going to stitch over here. When I first got the machine, I did change the bobbin tension. I know they say not to, but I'm always changing bobbin tension with other machines and whatnot. But I tightened it. I tightened the bobbin, and I'm at 4.5 on top. So anyways, so let's just go ahead and stitch it out. So it finished embroidering, so I'll hit OK on the screen. And I have my machine to stop in the needle down position, and I'm not letting it cut the threads. And so I'll just do needle up, and I'll lift up my presser foot, and I'll remove it from the hoop. So I just press in. Now if you want to remove it from the hoop a little easier, you can actually go to this screen. It might be a pain, but it actually brings the hoop back. You can go to this screen, say OK here, and then back up. Oops, forget that. And then what we want to do is click on this button here. That we want to click this button so that the hoop comes forward, the needle goes to the top. So we hit here, and that brought it forward. I don't know if you saw that. Let me go back. Go back to center. So it's there, and if you click this button on top, it brings the hoop forward, and then you can grab this to take the hoop out. It just makes it easier. So I'll just go ahead and push on this tab and then lift this up. And then because of the quilting being so thick, I am going to lift the presser foot higher just to get the clearance. And then because I'm burying the threads, I need from here to, what is that, like 4 or 5 inches? About 4 inches, the top. And then I'm just trying to get it so I could show it on the camera. And then the bottom, again, about 5 inches. And then we'll bury these threads, and I'll show you how I bury them. So what I use for burying is a little, what do they call this? a slotted pin. It's got a slot in the top. And the beginning one, both threads are at the top. So I basically just make a, I think it's called an overhand knot. If it's long enough, I can just put my finger like that away from me, or I'm left-handed, so, and then twist it, and then I usually stick my thumb inside and grab, and then hold that, don't tighten that yet, and then take your needle and put it 1/4 of an inch away from where it came out of, just kind of place it there for a minute, and then tighten that, and you'll see the knot on the needle is 1/4 of an inch away from where the thread came out of. And remove the needle, you have a knot. And then a lot of times I'll put the needle in first. Well, that's more than 1/4, so I can't see. Oh well, it's already knotted. I'm just burying it. So I try to put it into the batting, and I usually bring it close to one of the other threads. So, and you got to make sure you didn't come through on this side. And then once it's in, I shouldn't have went this way because I'm going to bang into the hoop. Sorry. Go this way. Check it. Okay. And then once it's in, then you can slot it. A lot of times I'll slot it first. So I really can't see what I'm doing. Okay. So I'll hold it, and there it's snapped in. Make sure I have enough slack. And then I bring it through. And then the knot is not in yet. And then you just pull it, and it's snapped in. And that's how quilters bury their knots. And so whoa, I almost dropped the camera. And then you want to cut it, pull it a little bit, and then kind of slant your scissors so you don't cut your fabric, and then go like that. And that one's buried. And that, you can't even see that. So, and then this one, the bobbin thread obviously is still on the back. And if it were not a tie off, you could just pull on the bobbin thread and you'd get a loop, which was, the loop would be the top thread. But I'm not going to pull on this because it's tied. There's a tie off, and I might distort this teeny weeny little knot. So I'm going to have to feed this through. And this time, I guess I'll just slot it first. It's not very long though, but it's okay. And I'll try to go in, right where I'm supposed to at the tip. And, that's how it's going to look. The tie-offs are usually a lot cleaner. Can't even find it. Where is it? Oh, right there. So that's it there. Because, they have tightness. They've got all this thread before it. And so when the take-up lever yanks up, it's still tight. At any rate, so I pulled that to the back. And I'll do the same thing. I have 2 threads now. And if you can't do it like this and twist it a full twist and stick your thumb inside and then grab it, then just take it like that and put this thread over it and put your finger on the thread and then do it that way. It's already threaded in there. A lot of times I'll snap it while it's doubled. There, it went in. But you can see it because I couldn't see what I was doing when I brought the other thread through. So there it is on the back. And you could see, where I messed up is the other one. But, of course, the front is still gorgeous. Right there. And there's the other one, the beginning. So it's snapped in. So it's never going to come out. Remember, I pulled and then slanted my scissor a little bit. There's a piece of tape on there. And that's that. And so we just keep doing that. So I can do one more right here. And I could probably fit in more on the side. So we'll take this out. See what we have so far. Now, when you start to go and do other columns and so on, you may even want to use 2 templates. So maybe just, stitch out 2 of these, because it is nice to have a crosshair on a previous stitched design. So like up here, I don't know if you could see this that's stitched out. When I go to line this one up, I don't have anything up here to line it up with. I just have something on the side, and I may decide that I want to come up here. I just don't know, right? So for me to just line this up with just this side one, sometimes you might not be confident in your placement because you don't have enough guidance or so on. So it's nice to have another one here with the crosshair drawn on it, because then you can line up the 2 crosshairs. So 2 of these would be probably ideal. So let's just pretend like this crosshair extends out. And if I put this one on previous design, okay, then when I go to place this one, I can line up this crosshair with that one easier. And then I could see I have a 1/4 inch there and less than a 1/4 inch there. But, and this line really needs to be parallel with this seam, so I could see that I'm crooked. So I can move that a little, but I'm really close there. So I am gonna maybe move this out here. So I'm happy with that. That looks good. That looks pretty parallel. And I'll just press this down, and then I'm ready to hoop. Okay, so I'm on the first screen. I accidentally unplugged my power source, so I had to pull the design up again. So I'm on the first screen here, so I have to hit Edit End to get to the second screen. And this is the screen where I can move the carriage. So let's just see, and of course your machines always default to center. So let's go over and see if I'm actually in the center of my template. So if I dial down, you could see I'm to the left of my template by about maybe a millimeter. So I'll dial back up and I'll take this arrow here and click it twice, probably, to go 1 mil. So I'll do that. Oop, a little crooked there. Okay, so I'll click it once to move the needle to the right. Dial down. I guess I'm in the center. I could go one more. It's half a dozen, one or the other, so I'll just go with that one. And then now I have to follow my crosshair, so I have to check for rotation if I need to rotate. So I have to go into embroidery to follow that crosshair. So click embroidery. I'm not right-handed. I'm going to follow this crosshair, so I click down here. And I'm going to go 10 stitches forward. So dial down, and it looks like my needle is to the right of my vertical. So again, the needle needs to be rotated counterclockwise to get on this line. So let's just confirm that. I'll go another 10. And then down here you see the needle is on the opposite side because of course we're down, and you have to consider like a little spinner. The needle is like a spinner. So here is the needle. It's now to the left of this crosshair. So again, we're confirming that the needle needs to be rotated counterclockwise to get it in line with this crosshair. So I don't need to confirm these other two. I'm pretty much convinced that I need to rotate maybe 1 degree. And remember, that's about all I had on the last hooping. Let's see. And this one as well, because I think I went over to the right. Ooh, even more than before. I can't recall, but let's see. So let's go back to our screen. We're going counterclockwise, and we'll hit OK here to get out of this screen. And we have to get out of this embroidery screen, so we have to hit our back button. And now we want to rotate. We're in the embroidery screen. And we're going to rotate counterclockwise 1 degree. So remember, even though it says 0 degrees and 360 degrees is the same position. So 1 degree counterclockwise takes us to 359. So you can see we did rotate. And so if I go another degree, though, it's probably not going to let me, because like I said, my design's too big. And see, it jumped to 271, so we have to go back. So 1 degree is all I get to rotate because my design is so big. So I'll just say OK, and I'll go back to embroidery, and I want to follow this crosshair again. So I'm going to go +10 and see if it's not right on, then oh well, I'm just going to go with it. As I'm not going to rehoop. So I'll go +10 stitches. Oh my gosh, it's right on. And so plus 10 and plus 10 stitches, and I'm right on. So I'm good. I don't have to confirm these other two lines. I know I'm good. I'm in the center, I'm rotated. So again, I'm just going to click OK. And one thing I forgot, I always forget this. Go back to this screen. I have to go to the next color because I'm not going to stitch the crosshair. So don't do it. The needle is down. Okay. Don't do what I just did. Oh, and this defaults to cut your threads. So if you want to bury your threads, you have to make sure that's off. So let me go back to the stitch and thread. It's stitch forward or back, and it's also thread forward or back. So our thread, we're going to the next color, and I'll hit OK because I'm on color 2 of 2. Now it's going to stitch the red one. It's not going to trim any jumps. And we're ready to go to our, I did it again. I still want to go to the first stitch, but, so I could pull up my thread. I do want to take this off, this template off. And then we'll go back to the first color. So I should have stayed on that screen. I don't really sew a lot on this machine, as you can tell. I'm usually using the Janome, but I love this machine so much. Okay, so we're going to go back so we can get to our first stitch of this red. So we're going to go stitch forward. We're only going to go one stitch forward from where we're at. We're on stitch 75 out of 634 stitches, but we want to go to stitch 76. So when I hit +1, the machine is going to move to the first stitch of the design. So I'll hit +1, and now it's moving. So now I'm going to try my experiment with giving me a tight beginning that I've told you I made a video on. So I'm going to put my presser foot down. I'm going to go needle down, needle up. I'm going to kind of hold my thread, not too tight, but let me make sure. Where is the thread? Okay, it's under there. I can't really see. So I'm going to just loosely hold it and kind of, go needle up, needle down, needle up. And then I'm going to lift my presser foot, pull up on the top thread, and I can see the bobbin thread loop there. I'll grab that because I just don't want to nest under there. And now, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to put the presser foot down, but I'm going to put my needle down as well. So I'm going to use my needle up, needle down button, which is, I guess I didn't show that before, sorry. Every machine is different, but mine is right here. So I'm going to hold my thread, not tight, just kind of loosely, and do needle down. But now, because I want to make this nice and neat, and usually what I do, though, is I separate the bobbin from the top so that I know which one to pull. I only want to pull the top thread, and I usually have it separated before I put the needle down. It looks like this is the top thread. So with the needle down, I take the top thread and I pull it till it stops, usually about an inch. There, it stopped. And so now I'll hold them both, and I think I'm going to have a lot tighter start this time. This is what I do with my vintage machines, because I make a lot of straps and things with leather and stuff, and sometimes you want to make sure your beginning is nice and tight, even when you make a tie on. That's the clincher right there. You can make the beginning nice and tight if you don't make a tie on, because then you could always just, pull your 2 threads, bobbin and top, when you're all done, and they naturally get tight. But if you have a tie on, you don't usually, you run the risk of it not being nice and tight, and then how are you going to make it tight? It's a tie on. You can't really do it unless you do it from the get-go. So that's what I'm going to try here. So we're all ready to go. Let's see how we do. So it did pull some of the thread away from me. But boy, that looks slick. It is completely beautiful. So I'm going to take this and put the thread over there. Start again. And then I'm going to take the thread and put it over here for the remainder, because I know nothing is going to stitch over there. So it did yank a little bit of the thread away from me, and I didn't want to fight it because I didn't want to, my vintage machine, I don't feel it doing that, but I did feel my Janome 4900 kind of pull some of the top thread away from me, and I kind of let it do so as well, because they do need some thread to complete their cycle. So I'm still experimenting with that. So anyway, so it finished. I said okay, and I'm going to lift my needle up and take my presser foot up. And actually, I could just pull this thread, like this, and then down here to get enough thread if I want to do it that way, since the take-up lever is up. Actually, no, it's not going now. Oh, it got caught. I guess it's better to do it the other way because I can't see what I'm doing. Okay. So, but that's only for the top one. So, if I want to take my machine out, or my hoop out, in an easier manner, again, I can go back to the screen and hit OK, hit back, hit this button here, hit this top button. When I hit this top button, the hoop will come forward. Okay, and now I can easily, I don't know if you hear that. That is too funny. I can easily take this hoop out by grabbing, this in here. I'll tell you, even though this takes a while because these designs are so small, I'm just enjoying the design being so pretty. I'm enjoying watching it stitch out on this beautiful fabric. The stitches are just lovely on this machine. Just everything about this experience is so enjoyable. And just so happy. You notice my safety pin is way up out of the way, and I don't really need it anymore up there. And I'll just keep going and finish this. So I'll bury these threads. So let's first see though how this knot, oh my God, it's perfect. It is perfect. Let's see. I was talking so much I forgot to cut my bobbin thread. I started walking away and I got a long string of thread. So we'll cut that. Okay, so let's take a look at that. That looks great. That just looks great. So I'm going to go ahead. I made this one long enough to do my knot the way well, maybe not. So I can't really see. It's just quicker for me to do it that way. Okay. I think I'm in the batting. And I think I'm still knotted. Oh, one of them only. Boy, I'm just messing this up. Let's take them both out. That's why sometimes I just stick the needle in first, because I get everything all tangled. Okay. There, I heard it snap. Pull on the thread and slant my scissors. Let's look at that. Boy, that's beautiful. I didn't get in the hole very good because I couldn't see again. And then here's the back. Right there. I mean, it does look tighter than the other one, but it's still a knot. And now this one, I just hesitate pulling on this because as you can see, you know, you're not going to get the loop to come out. So you have to just feed it through. And I'm going to try to do it correctly this time. Okay, I think I got right in the hole this time. I should have checked the back before I... That's good enough. Whoops, glasses got caught. Where am I at? Here. Good. No. My needle turned. So they're both in. Sometimes you got to pull it back out because you end up snagging your fabric. Snap. Okay. So there you go. Now I could have had this done a long time ago if I did it on my Janome, but the one thing about the Janome is it doesn't have some of the features that the brother has because it's older. It's like 14 years old. So then again, I'll just keep going with this. So I decided I wanted to fill in just this little gap going all the way down. And then I also decided that it would be better to use a flimsy fabric to attach on, either a flimsy fabric or some thin stabilizer. And I didn't want to use stabilizer just to save money. And this is just old fabric that I had laying around. And it's like, it was for like lining for a dress or something. So I folded it in half and then stitched the folded edge at 1/4 inch stitch line using the stitch on my, if you turn it over, you know, the front side is straight stitch and then the back side is a chain. And then when you want to take it out, you just pull it out. I ran out of thread because I used scrap thread to make the chain stitches. So, and you pull the back thread, you pull the thread to the back and then pull it to knot it. And then when you want to pull the thread out, you have to bring it back to the front or just cut one of the front threads. So I'm just going to hoop it like that because I thought if it were flimsy, then I could just push the seam allowances towards the flimsy fabric. So then this part, the quilted part, is still just flat. And then there will be no bulk here when I hoop across the seam. So I'm hoping that'll work because, you know, like I said, quilting is so forgiving, but I didn't want to have a bulk here in the hoop. So I'm going to iron this and then I'll hoop it and I'll finish this whole line. And then I still don't know about the bottom and the top. I keep going further and further into it. I was going to use the, because now that I'm doing so much, I was going to use the overlap, this overlap hoop, but you have to make the design like 3 inches tall to get it to fit in here and still have room to rotate and so on. And I didn't want to make this design smaller because then it's not going to nest. So I have to just keep rehooping my 4x4 hoop for this big project, which is fine because then it'll give you an idea if you wanted to make a bag. So far on this one, now mind you, this was 3.75 tall. The one in the file will be 3.5 inches tall. But this one, so far I have 1, 2, 3 by 1, 2, 3. So 3 by 3, so that's 9. And it is so far this part of the design is about 9 by 11. So that could be the front of a bag right there if you want. But I may just make it into a bag that just folds and then has a flap or something. It has a flap on top. I don't know. If I did this, well, it'd be kind of wide then. And then I did this as a flap. That'd be cute. Those are easy and quick. So, but I don't know. I have so many quilted pieces, but not a lot that are embroidered like this. This is just beautiful. So I'm going to go and iron this, and I'll let you see how it turns out. So I'm not sure if I showed you, like, when I come back to the machine after I finished a hoop, finished a design. I just come back to the screen, and however I left it, I just pick up where I left off and pretend like it's the same design, but I check for center. So I'm happen to be on this screen because this is the screen, if you remember, where when I took the hoop off, I wanted the hoop to come forward towards me, so I pressed this button. And so now since I'm on this screen, I'll just press the center button because that brings it to my center from the last design. So now I'll see if my center from the last design is the same as the center I just hooped. If not, I'll move it. Okay, so I'm just gonna dial down and see where I'm at. So it looks like my needle is to the right, so I have to move the needle left. So I just come right over to this screen, and I hit OK to get out of this screen. And this is the screen that says Embroidery, so this is the one that will move the carriage. My needle is too far to the right, so I have to move the needle left. Oh, my needle is down. So I moved it 3, so I'm at 0.5 from my original. Let's see what that does for me. That actually puts me right in the center, but I'm up too high, so I have to bring it down. So I'm going to hit down. Let's see. And now I'm right in the center. My needle is right in the center of my cross here. So now I have to check for rotation, so I have to trace my cross here. So I have to go into embroidery and then into this stitch plus or minus. And I'll just go 10 forward and see where that brings me. So that brings me, and I'm going to have to watch this. I'm actually right on my crosshair, so I'll go 10 forward more. Yeah, I'm right on, so I don't have to rotate it. So while I'm on this screen then, since I'm on the crosshair, and I don't want to be, I want to start my design, I'll hit this plus on the thread to go to the next thread color. Oh. Okay, now I'm on thread color 2, but I want to go to the first stitch of thread color 2, so I want to go to 76. So I'll hit plus 1, and that took my needle over to my first stitch. So now I can come over here. So I'm at my first stitch, and I'm going to take my template off so that I could get my bobbin thread. So I'm going to put the presser foot down, and I do that so that the tension discs close so that I don't lose my thread. So then I'll go needle down, needle up, lift my presser foot, pull on the thread, grab my thread, make sure it's long enough so I can make a easy knot, just to make life easier on me. I'll put the foot down, and actually, since this was in this part of the fabric, I didn't even have to go through all this, but I still don't want to nest at the bottom, so this is fine. So I'm going to hold the thread here, and I'm actually going to try my experiment with, I'll put the needle down, and again, I forgot to separate the two threads. I'll take the top thread and pull it till it's tight, about 1 inch. And now I'll press my finger on the fabric and I'll hit start. It really didn't take much thread from me, hardly any. Getting good at that pattern, knowing the pattern. This is stitching with no stabilizer under it, but you know, I don't need it, and it's just a single run. Okay, so this one is done. I'll hit OK. Needle up, presser foot up. It does stitch out quite quickly, which is nice. Okay. And everything is up. And I'll come over here, I forgot. And I'll bring my, I'll say OK. I'll go back out of there. I'll go into here and move the hoop forward. So I'm going to cut this. Lift up a little more to cut, to take that hoop out. And we'll go ahead and not bad. It really looked great. See, you don't even need stabilizer when you're just doing single. Looks like I did it on the sewing machine. It may be a little funky over here, you know, because probably getting used to the different tensions, the different fabrics. So I will hoop the next one. Okay, so I got most of it done. There's 12 of them now. 1, 2, 3, 4, and then 1, 2, 3. So there's 12. So it measures about 11 by 11 for 12 of them. And here's the back, just so you could see how nice it nests. It's just gorgeous. And I messed up here on the edge, but I guess I'll be serging that anyways, so it'll probably cut right here. So, because my seam folded over, I didn't think about that. I could have put washable glue there, like you could use Elmer's washable school glue, and I could have just put it on there and let it dry for a few minutes because it's washable. And it doesn't gum up your machine. I don't use any sprays because they get everywhere, even when you use a box or take them they're all over my spare bathroom. So I don't use it anymore. This is fabric glue stick that's washable, but this is so cheap. I have to get more of those. So I could have done that on the seams just to make sure that that seam stayed flat, but I forgot. So there you have it. It's just beautiful. And this is the back. And look at the back is just as gorgeous as the front. So I'm really happy with it. I don't know what I'm going to make, and I also don't know if I'm going to finish the bottom. If I do finish the bottom, or at least the top, since there's 3 inches up there, I probably should. That would be 1, 2, 3, 4. That would be 8 more, even though I'm going to be cutting them off if I did both top and bottom. But I mean, just to show you what you can do with a small machine, this would be a really cute bag. I mean, really cute. Really, really, really cute. And I could make a flap for it. So or let's see. If I just made it like this and actually even came all the way up, which means I would have to finish quilting that, and then made a flap coming over. But I would hate to hide this. So I'd probably make it a top zip bag. So, which means I probably would put maybe a panel here of some sort, maybe something quilted again, maybe marine vinyl, but I almost hate to mix marine vinyl with cotton, quilted cotton. It's just not natural. I could put some leather band. There's just so many options. So there you have it. I don't know if I showed this up close or not. How beautiful that is. This is over on this, so it's not as, pretty right there. There's no stabilizer or anything under here. Okay. Enjoy. So I've decided to make a ghost template, kind of like the ones you see that a long arm quilter uses when they follow a pantograph. They always have the previous and the future stitches on the template so you could position better. So you might be able to see the little bits of gray ghost stitches on the screen here. They're right here. There's a couple down here, up there. And so that'll help you when you are positioning this template. And I decided that I would use the regular template without the ghosting to place on the previous block, because then the ghosting wouldn't be stitched, but you would just, at least you'd have the crosshair on it, and you can match up the design that's previously been stitched, and then you'll know your crosshair is correct for when you line up the next one that actually has the ghosting on it. And you'll see what I mean after I print this. So I'm printing it on just clear plastic, you know, that you just get from shipping and whatnot. I have so much of it. This one's kind of thin. For the plastic, I'm just using embroidery thread in the bobbin. And I'm going to use, the first that stitches out, you'll see, is the red. I'm going to use red, but I'm going to use quilting thread because it's a little thicker than the embroidery thread. I just want it to stand out, so I do hope it stitches well. It did on the other one, so, but I used thicker or thicker vinyl. But I think this should be fine. So that's going to stitch first. So for the template, you don't have to position anything. You just hoop your plastic and go. I just have to change my threads. So I brought it up. Let me go back. So when I brought it up, this is the first screen, of course. And you'll hit Edit End. And then this is where we would position it and so on, but we don't need to do that, so we'll just go into embroidery. And then we just let our first stitch stitch. But I'm still going to bring up the bobbin thread. So I'm going to click on the stitch plus or minus, and I'm going to go to the first stitch. So I have red thread in because it's going to stitch the crosshair and the basting box and the crosshair. So I'm just putting it under the presser foot. I didn't really have to do that, but because I could have done it, fished it out after I did needle down up. So I'll go needle down up with the presser foot down, lift the presser foot, pull on the top thread, grab my tweezers, and pull up the bobbin. Hold my thread. So it's going to stitch the box first. Put the presser foot down and hit start. Should have cut that, but oh well. So I made it so there's a nice transition there, but I don't know if this is cutting the jumps or not. It looks like it's not. So I think I set the machine to not trim jumps so that I'd have a clean tie on. Okay. Actually, I could have left it because now I'm going to have to deal with that, but that's kind of a bummer. Yeah, I probably should have set it to trim them. I have a scissors button right here, and I'm going to touch that to at least get rid of that one. And this one, though, the bobbin thread is underneath, and I could just take the hoop off and on to get it, which I guess I'm going to have to, because I just don't want the threads showing, because this is the template. There's going to be enough going on. So, and then this one I wish I would have cut before it. Well, there it is. I can grab it and pull that out. And so I guess I will take this out just so I can cut this jump thread. Lift my presser foot up, that would help. So for the template, you do want to set it to trim them. I think it would just be easier. I did try to connect the ghost stitches, so the ghost stitches are gonna stitch over themselves twice because I branched them, but that's okay because this is just a template. I'm gonna click OK, but see how I have my jumps not trimming, so I'll click on that, and then it's showing that I'm on the second color now, which is good. My second color is gray, showing here. So that's the ghost stitches. So I'm gonna change my thread and I'll be right back. So I'm on the first stitch, so I've got my presser foot down. I'm gonna do needle up, needle down, needle up. Pull up my presser foot, pull on the thread, grab my tweezers, pull out the bobbin thread, presser foot down, and hold my finger here or on the hoop, and press start. And I think I will cut the thread. I tried not to cut it way down low so I don't cut the tie off, but so you can see how it's going over it twice. So I changed my thread. We're on color number 3, and I'm gonna stitch out the actual design now. I wish I could show my buttons here, but this is my needle down, needle up button. I got my presser foot down. Lift my presser foot, pull on the top thread. Oh, there's my pointer. Pull out the bobbin, presser foot down. I'll hold my finger on the hoop or somewhere about. I like to hold it low down here, and we'll just start. So I changed to I'm going to move my thread around. I changed to a bright green so I could maybe see it. It's not the heavy quilting thread, but I just thought it would be better. So I have gray for the ghost, green for the design, and red for the basting box and the crosshair. Okay, so here's the one I just stitched with the ghost stitches on it. And then here's the other one. It just has no ghost stitches. And if I had to redo that again, I'd probably make it also a brighter color, because this is the one that I'm going to put up on top of a previous design. Oh, I shouldn't have put it on the paper. So we'll go ahead and get some. I just have regular tape on this previous one, just in 2 places is fine, because this isn't going to be hooped or anything, so I don't have to worry about anything. I kind of want to have more for the fabric and less on the template, because it sticks well on the template, you know. So I'll go ahead and I'm going to stitch up in through here this time, and I'll pick one of these. I I stitched this flimsy fabric on because I'm done with this. I'm just going to do this and that's it, and I'll make this into a bag, because remember, this is the one where I just have regular bobbin thread on the back because it's going to be a purse. And so I'll pick one of these. Now remember, this may not match up perfectly because of draw when you're quilting, but it'll be close. In fact, I noticed that this design, if I lay this on, because remember this is for the previous designs, if I lay this on and try to match it up, I matched up here, but here I'm not, and down here I'm not. And I don't know what happened with this one. There must have been a lot of draw or something. But it's okay, because I'm really more interested in my crosshair than anything for this, for the purpose of this template. And since I'm so far away from a straight line on my quilt or what have you, I can use a ruler and line it up with a line, a seam line on the quilt, and this crosshair here if I want. And I can see, you know, there's this line here, but I'm far away from that one, so let me move it. And let me slant it a little. So now I'm trying to get as close as I can. So it looks fairly okay, like this is farther down. My crosshair could be slanted a little bit more, because this is on the straight seam. So if I were going to stitch up here, this is the placement I would use, and I would tape it down. And then use this crosshair to then line this up. Oh, I did it again. I put it on the paper and I messed up my double-sided tape. Sorry. Let me pause to redo this. Okay. So I would line this up. I would match this ghost with this stencil, and I'd line up this crosshair with this crosshair, and then I'd pretty much know that I was going in the right direction, and then I would, you know, smash this down the tape and then hoop it. But it looks like I'm slightly crooked up here. It doesn't look like I'm parallel with this seam line. So let me go ahead and, you know, maybe I need it to be up a little higher. I did it wrong. Now I look like I'm pretty straight. I look like this line here. Sometimes it's better with, there's my seam line, I think. Oh, right here and here. So it does look like I need to pivot it just a hair. And if my stencil were bigger, you know, then I could line it up better, but then it would get caught in the hoop when I hoop it. So this is kind of my method. And the other thing is I could be using this Get Squared ruler so I could see better inside. And I had forgotten to use that. So the green and the green are lined up with the seam. And this red is lined up here and here. So the red needs to, this left side needs to come down just a hair, it looks like. It's actually sticking to the stencil below it. So I put the tape down too far. So now let's see. If I line I could line up the actual centers of this with the red crosshair just so that I'm consistent. And now my green lines are matched up here. And since those are matched, I want to make sure these are matched. And they look pretty good. And this is still meeting down here. And this is still, this ghost is still on the template. Granted, this one is a little messed up. It got twisted or what have you. But I'm close enough. And that's what's great about this is you don't have to match up exactly. Now, just so you know, this template was interesting because as let me just pull this away, I'll leave that there. When I put this previous template on some of these other ones, they matched up exactly. Like that one is exactly matched up. And the same thing for this one. It matches exactly. So, you know, I don't know what happened with this design, but it doesn't matter because it looks great and it's just very forgiving. So then that's smashed down, and so then I'll just go through the rest of my process, take this, line up the crosshairs. And they are easier to see when they're red like that, red thread. So my crosshairs matched up. And again, if you don't have this type of flat template, I don't know, you can maybe contact me. I could maybe make you one. But this is for the 4x4. I might have one for the Janome MB4, the M1 hoop. And I might have one for, what do you call that? It's a jumbo hoop for the MB4, for the M1, but it's a flat hoop. And it's not the Easy, it's the other company. But I have one made for that. But that's a whole different process because it's a flat hoop. You can contact me and I could maybe make you something like this that's flat. So anyway, so we press this down just like before. And then take our hoop and slide it under. And I have to open this back up to a 1/2 inch. And sorry, I'm not up high enough. And yes, technically you could just hoop some poly mesh stabilizer, or not poly mesh. You'd have to hoop wash away, or either, yeah, you'd have, if you're not using a backing, you can hoop you know, poly mesh and just cut it and leave it in there, and then float the top. But stabilizer is so expensive, and if you are showing the back, then you'd have to hoop wash away and then float all 3 layers. So there's just so many variations and ways to go about this. So hopefully I opened that up enough because I was talking. Sorry. We'll see. So, and that's why it's been hard for me getting this out, because I keep diverging into all of the various methods and options. There's just so many. So I'll push down on the left and then the bottom left corner, and then walk my palm of my hand around. And that looks good, like it hooped. Looks like that wrinkled a little. So it looks like my hoop might be, sorry, I should have had this up higher. Yeah, it was kind of loose. But, you know, what are you going to do? It was even hard for me to hoop it with that, you know, because of the batting. So that's hooped and my cross is still on, so I'm good. So we'll take that off and then pull it up like that. And so now we'll just go to the machine as usual and, you know, get my bearings and so on. So one thing we do want to remember when we do come back to the machine to stitch out the actual design, you want to make sure you don't have the ghost design up, you know, for the template. So let's go ahead and click OK here. Back out of this. Back, OK to cancel. And then pull up our actual design. So it must have been this one. I'm going to hit Edit End so that I could make sure I hooped correctly. So first thing we'll do is check for center. So obviously it always goes to center. It always defaults to center. So let's see. And I'll dial my needle down. And it looks like I'm too far to the left, so again, I'm going to come over here and I'm going to, this moves the carriage, remember, because it says embroidery. My needle is too far left. I have to move it to the right. I'm going to try that, 1.5 mils, and see how that did. I can go a little more. Okay, so I'm right on perfectly. I don't have to go vertical. So now I have to check for rotation. So I have to go into the embroidery screen. And I want to bury my thread, so I'm turning off the cutter and I'm going to go into the stitch forward back. And I'm not anywhere. I'm on the 0 of the 2 objects. So I want to go to my first stitch, which is my crosshair. And this crosshair, for some reason it's starting vertical. It came up here, but that's okay. I usually like to check the horizontal one. It's easier for me to see and I'm more used to it. So I'm going to keep going till I'm on the horizontal. Going plus 10. And now I'm here on the horizontal. I just like it better. My brain works better when I do that. So if I dial down, it looks like I'm actually right on. So let me go another plus 10. Plus 10. And let me go minus 1 to get more on the line. And I'll dial down just to confirm. And it looks like I'm right on. So I don't even have to rotate this one, so I'm good. So I'm actually going to peel this off now. It figures now that everything's in my way. Okay. And I'm going to come over here. And I'm going to go to the next thread color. So that's up here, my thread, this, focus, okay, so I'm on thread color 1, which is the crosshair, so I want to go to the next one down here, plus, so now I'm on the second one, but I want to go to the first stitch of that second color, so I'll hit plus 1. And that takes me over to my first stitch. And I'll put my presser foot down and go needle down, needle up, pull up my presser foot, pull on this thread, grab my tweezers, pull that out. I have to remember which design. This is the design where I like to hold the thread in the back. just because it's easier for me to stop and start. Put my presser foot down and start, and keep my thumb here so that I could stop it. Actually, I didn't need to do that. I could have just pulled it around, but it's better for me. And now I'm going to pull it all the way around with my left hand. Like I said, I almost put my right hand in there, and that's not a good idea. So now we'll just let it stitch out. So then this flimsy fabric is just going to get cut off, but I'll leave it on until I'm ready to piece this together into a bag or what have you. I could even make a pillow out of this one, or anything for that matter. Just not a quilt because I have embroidery stitches on the back. I mean, bobbin thread on the back for this one. So then, after this, I'll show you the method that I really like when you kind of don't know where you're going with a quilt. You're just kind of winging it. And it's really nice. It's very relaxing. You don't have to worry too much, and it's actually, the quilt will be all done with the embroidery machine, so everything will be done except for your binding, of course. So that finished, and it's not cutting my thread, so I'll lift up. And I'll just remove it from, let me do needle up, needle down. So while the presser foot was down, I should have hit needle up. I just like to do it that way, and then lift it. I thought I would show the stitching of the ghost template for, this is for the overlap hoop for the Brothers 600 and 625. It's the 4-inch by 6.8 inch. And as far as these ghost stitches go that are stitching now on the edge in gray here, when you do print out your ghost template, you will see travel stitches because I branched these. They're just so many little teeny parts. And that's okay because we're not using this file for anything but this. But this is kind of how it will probably look. There won't be as many pieces in the bigger designs and the regular single hoops, but you know, this is a double design, so these are going to go all the way down. So you see a little travel stitch there, and there's one there. There's one there. And then these will stitch double because I branched it. Whenever you branch something, it stitches double. And it should stitch exactly double. If you have a software that does not stitch exactly 2 layers, then there's something wrong with the software. I do know of one software that does that incorrectly. Anyway, so I just wanted to point that out. So I'll just kind of show a little bit of its stitching. I might either want to turn the light off or get the lighting better. So one sec. And I also should point out, just so you know, that normally when I would branch something, if it was a regular design, the pieces that I'm branching will be touching each other in some manner before I branch them. Well, these were not. These little pieces were not touching each other, and that's why you see these haphazard little connections. So, but like I said, that's okay because it's just a template for positioning. So, okay, so we'll just watch it sew for a little bit. So it's over here. And this is the top part, and then I'll have to switch to the bottom part. When I stitched this out, I thought, well, because it stitches the first part of this rectangle, you know, and then another hooping, you have to move the hoop. It stitches the other part of the rectangle. But I wanted the rectangle and the crosshair to be in red. So do I feel like changing my thread, or do I feel like just changing the hoop, taking this latch and sliding it down to go down here, keep the red thread in? I opted for doing it that way. This particular one did not split correctly. I'll have to fix it. It's split up here and then it's stitched a little piece, but I have to remember to fix that. And this is just the border for cutting. So, you know, because we'll cut 1/8 of an inch away from the border. So anyways, so that's what I opted for. And I also opted to not stitch the crosshair until the very end because I wanted it to be on top of all the stitches. So I'm going back and forth with stitching this overlap hoop. And you can do that because it's in there in so many different ways, and you can fast forward to a different thread color and so on. So, and I'll show you what it looks like when this one gets done. So we'll go ahead and start this. And I don't want the camera to bump anything. So now you can see it's going back over itself. And sometimes it just has its own brain that it just knows how to branch. So remember, this goes on our new area that we're going to be quilting, and we plop these gray ghost figures on top of the previous stitching. We match them up, and then we match up the crosshairs as best we can as well. Okay, so I have the cutter on for this, so that ghost area is done, and then I'll show you what it looks like here. So we'll hit OK. And so this was just one object, and it's all done, so that's why it went back to 0 to 1. So we'll hit OK. We're going to get out of here, so we're going to hit our back button here. And we're going to back all the way out, so hit the back button and then hit it again. Cancel this, yes, okay. And now we're going to go in and grab the other gray one. It's in this folder, and then I have it in the next page in this folder, and it's on the is this the first one? That's the one I just did, the top one. I don't know if you could see it. It's gray. And these were the first two. And you can see this is the top one, the one that I'm currently doing, the top part of the hoop. And I opted to just stitch the red, and then I backed out of it, and then stitched the other red. I pulled this design up and just stitched this red. And then while I was on this red, I stitched the green. I changed my thread finally then and stitched the green. And I made them both green. So once this one's stitched, then I backed out of that whole design, pulled this one back up and stitched this blue one. But like I said, I used green thread for both of these. And then backed out of that and then brought this one up and stitched it. And so now I'll go to the next page. And you could see here's my crosshair. It's split up into two different hoops as well. But here's the bottom gray one. So that's the one I'm going to stitch now. And I'll hit set, edit end, embroidery. And now remember I'm at the bottom hoop, but I never changed my hoop position here. So make sure this is up. Pull up a little. It is harder to get up because it's way over here and I'm pulling up here. But I could have moved the hoop a little bit, you know, pushed it up and then well, actually I could have pulled it from back here. I forgot this is a long hoop, so I made it harder on myself. So anyway, so we got that off. We're going to go down to the last two. Clasp those in. And over here you can see, but I'm going to go to the very first stitch so I could pull up my bobbin thread. So I'm going to hit this and go to stitch 1. And when I hit it, the hoop moves to the first stitch. So I'll pull some thread out while the pressure foot is up and the tension discs are released. Pull some thread out, push the pressure foot down, needle up. This button right here. Just hold the thread lightly, presser foot up, pull the thread, grab my tweezers, the bobbin thread. Put that down. And I'm not sure how this is going to stitch, but you know which direction. So the regular design is only stitching once, but I believe I have another embroidery design that looks just like this swirl, and it does do a double stitch. It backs on itself, and you don't see it like this. They're completely on top of each other. And maybe somebody wants that. Maybe they want a heavier looking stitch or what have you. You know, if they're stitching on leather or something, they might want that. See, I didn't realize there was a jump in this design, but it's okay. Like I said, it's just a template. And normally when I branch something, the objects are touching each other before I branch, so then there would definitely not be any jumps. So since these weren't touching each other, that's probably why I had that jump. I mean, the software can only do so much, and I didn't check. And I probably wouldn't have changed it anyways, because like I said, that this is a lot of work just for a template, so it's fine. And I have like 6 more 5 or 6 more sizes to do because I had this idea to make these ghost templates. Okay, so now we're going to do the cross here, and I'm wondering if I should turn it over to cut those jumps on the back. I don't think well, yeah, I should because, well, no, because the center where the crosshair is going to stitch is going to be up a lot farther, I believe. I don't think it'll be in that way, but maybe I'll cut them anyways. Let's just see what the bottom one looks like. So I'll come back over here. Click OK. OK. Back out of this. Back. Back. OK. Next page. This folder. Page. We're going to our crosshair. So let's see. That's the top one, obviously. This is the bottom one that I'm on right now. So we'll do that one. So that's just a vertical line. So I don't think those threads are going to bother it. So we'll hit Edit End, Embroidery, +1. And we'll come over then and okay. Down, needle up. Oh, I'm using the wrong thread color. Well, at least I got my bobbin thread up because I want to make this crosshair red. Let me thread this. Okay, so I have my red thread in. My bobbin thread is still there, peeking out. Pull that out. Press her foot down. And start. Okay. And so I'm actually going to, since I'm going to have to move the hoop to the top, I'm going to cut those threads just to make sure everything's okay when I do the next part of the cross here. That's up. Yep, everything's in the way. We'll have to go this way. So now I'm going to just finish it up then with the top of that cross here. Okay. So it's telling me it finished the bottom cross here. We'll hit OK. OK. And then back, back, back. Back, OK. USB, folder, page, folder, page, page. And this is the top of the cross here. Set, edit end, embroidery, +1. So we'll pull up our bobbin thread. I have to tilt the camera like that. So I'll pull some thread out, press her foot down, needle up, press her foot up, pull the thread, bobbin. Okay. And here we go. So I just realized it's cutting, that trim is that you set the button for the trim that you set over here. I'll show you which one I mean. This one. I just noticed on this machine, so that button is just, it is just trimming after the entire color is finished, because this was a jump. And you can see it didn't cut the jump within that object. So that's interesting, or within that color, or object / color in this case. So that's it. So then this one's done. Now, I think I have the regular template for this. I think I stitched it. But, I mean, it's basically the same as a regular hooping now. You're just, you're still using the center. You're still lining it up. Like, this is your center when you line it up. You hoop the whole thing, of course. But when you go to stitch, you're going to use the top two buttons. The top two buttons here when you stitch the top design, and so on, and then move it to do the bottom. So there you go. So that's a little bit on the ghosting, and till the next one, I'll see you later.